We are back on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Our guest by phone is author Erik Rush. Erik, before we talk about who benefited from the mortgage crisis, I want to mention you also write for WorldNet Daily.
Yes, I do. I have their byline for me is The Other Rush, and I have a column that comes out every Thursday, and if you go to WorldNet Daily under commentary, you can find my my column there, and there's also an archive of everything that I've ever written for them.
Okay, good, because that's a real powerful set there of authors and oh yeah. Do you know any of the authors there?
Yes, I do, actually. Quite well, I won't say quite a few. Quite a few of them I've corresponded with, but I've met several.
Old friend of mine is an author there, Jane Chastain. We've had her on the show before, but I've known Jane for a long, long time. We used to do a lot of radio together in the early 90s. Yeah,
well, the high point of my year last year was getting to hang out with Dr. Alan Keyes.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I was actually on a panel with him. We were talking about alleged racism in the Tea Party, but that man has got, I think he has an IQ of like 2,000 or something.
I actually got to be his driver one day.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, I was involved with, I want to say it was with Christian Coalition, and I got to pick up some speakers at the airport at LAX, and I got to pick up Alan Keyes one day and drive him to an event that he was speaking at. But
neat. He's extremely personable.
Yes. And, had life would be totally different in our country had he won that election he had against Obama in Illinois way back when.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of President Obama, who benefited from the mortgage crisis? Politicians.
Well, there were a lot of people. If you look at Acorn, of course, and its principals, they take money from the taxpayers. They get grants and so forth. This is really ironic and disgusting. They get grants and taxpayer funds, and they have buddies in Congress. Like Obama used to be, and that would funnel them money, both essentially legally. So they benefited through the work that they were doing. The mortgage bankers, who, despite the fact that they were pressured into this, of course, found a way that they could shave off some money while this was going on. They had a lot of different ways that they fronted these loans when they turned them over, when they moved them around. Of course, they make a little bit of money here and there, but of course, when you bundle all these loans together, it winds up being quite a bit. Then, of course, you had people such as Chris Dodd and Barack Obama. When they were senators, they received the largest donations from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They were the two largest ones, Obama and Dodd. And then, of course, you have people who were working for Fannie and Freddie, which are technically corporations, so their executives get bonuses. And behind all of that, their chief, Fannie Mae's chief officer, Franklin Raines, walked away with $90 million.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? You've
$90 million when this went down. And I mention that because that was the largest. He obviously isn't the only one in that industry who benefited.
So you have an organization that's failing, and you as a CEO are picking up $90 million for the great job you did.
Right.
Fantastic. Now, wasn't it Frank Dodd and then Obama? Obama was third on the list of people that got major contributions from Fannie Mae. I think he was number 3 on the list, and I think that was something you wrote that I saw that in.
Yeah, I wrote that Dodd was number 1, Obama was number 2. I don't recall precisely what Frank walked away with or had, in terms of donations, but obviously he was well into it, being the chairman of the banking committee, which he's been for a long time.
Sure. We're having a conversation with the other Rush, Erik Rush, author, commentator, and author of Negrophobia. One of the quotes from your book, Erik, that kind of fascinated me. You said a lot of black Americans remain ignorant because that's the way politicians and activists want them to remain. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, if black Americans were to suddenly, if the light was to go on and they suddenly knew everything that, for example, I know in terms of how things work, not opinion, just truth, about what these politicians and activists have done to them, there would be people marching around with torches and pitchforks, and they'd be hanging people from the trees in D.C. and so it would be really ugly. Mm-hmm. The activists, the politicians, like I said, they have a financial and or political imperative for keeping black Americans where they are in terms of not knowing how things are going down, not knowing how things are working, not knowing that the activists are in bed with the politicians on the left. And this is why the education systems in urban areas, which are, in which you have your large black urban communities, why the education stinks. Well, the education stinks because they don't want the black kids to learn anything. And then, of course, between that and the social programs, you've got the families that just, aren't in existence anymore. So you've got a lot of social malaise, gang problems, prostitution, poverty, drug use, the whole 9 yards. And if black Americans were to wake up, of course, they would start voting differently after they got through hanging people. And it would definitely change. It would be a game changer for liberal politicians. So obviously, they don't want that to change.
Sure. Now, in your book, you also said that we're looking at dependence, discontentment, and hopelessness, and it's a subtle form of slavery. That's a pretty strong statement. I agree with you, but it's a pretty strong statement.
Well, the worst part about it, and this is why I generally tell black people not to take it personally, is that what was done with the black community was sort of a test case.
Right.
We can see this being expanded into the greater community now of everyone, because the radical left politicians and activists need more people on the dole, as it were. So they're expanding the thing. Socialized health care is a great way to get there. And the more people like Obama and his administration and the Democrat leadership have their way, the more we're going to see social programs expand, and the more of us are going to be enslaved in that manner, and will become incrementally more ignorant and less wealthy, and it's going to be really ugly.
Yeah, and it just perpetuates itself. I mean, it's not something that's getting any better, because more people are becoming more dependent upon government programs. So more people, not only minorities, are buying into the system, as it were.
Yeah, and then when you get people onto these things, they're afraid. They don't want to. They have a perception, well, if you take these things away, we're going to suffer, and we don't want that. And then, of course, there are the feelings of entitlement, which the politicians and activists tell them that they have, particularly in the black community. Mm-hmm. What? You're entitled to this. Look how you were screwed over for, centuries. This is the least they can do for you. And, if you were to do anything, or if one were to do anything decisive in that area, it could get kind of scripty for a while, in addition to being really hard to bring off politically.
And I think that's probably one of the keys to the re-election of Obama coming up in 2012, with 47% of the people probably having some type of entitlement or not paying taxes. That's where his base is. Well,
if you have 49% of the voters, supporting 51% of the voters, then the Democrats are in power in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. They've got it.
Sure, and that's exactly what they're striving for. Right. Do you think, looking at Obama and looking at the way, well, let me phrase it this way: are we a racist nation? Do you think?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, people have their funny quirks and their misperceptions, and of course there are idiots out there who do harbor racist thoughts, but I really believe that for the majority of Americans, race is a non-issue.
Yeah, and I think there's some people on both sides of the agenda. I mean, just a friend of mine who's African American, we were looking on Facebook at a mutual friend of ours who left the Republican Party. He said, there's too many jokes about Obama that cross over that line, and he feels it's racist, and I can understand that. Mm-hmm. So, and unfortunately, we tend to shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. And people, there are plenty of people out there who are insensitive and stupid. And, I would say to your friend, there are definitely a lot of people who are, on the right or, the right of center who are disgusted with the Republican Party for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah. When we come back, let's pick up on that for a moment, okay?
Sure.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.